Monday mornings with Matt and Kevin. What's in the news? Topics that come up around the dinner table will be given the truth treatment with no punches held and no falsehood left standing. These two will debate real-life issues from a Catholic perspective every Monday at 9 a.m. Eastern.
And now, here are your hosts, Matt and Kevin.
Well, it's another Monday morning. We're happy to be here with you guys. Hopefully you're all enjoying a cup of coffee. We know that Matt loves his coffee. I do too. And it's one of those things that Matt might be. I know I am giving that up for Lent. That's a very common one. You know, I can't though. I fully admit I can't give up caffeine just yet. I drink black tea. I don't like it as much, but I can't do no caffeine. I turn into a monster. But happy. I'm really happy. I'm happy to be joined back by Matt, who's been out sick for a couple of weeks. We Matt and I we joke about it, but we've been doing this for a while now, and every time we get to January or December, end of December, we just know that we're both going to be gone for a couple of weeks or so. You know, every time. So just kind of how it goes. But hopefully now we're across that threshold, and now we're going to be healthy for the rest of the year. And hopefully we're going to be healthy during Lent. I mean, this is the point. I was telling Matt before the show. I'm actually at this moment. I'm excited for Lent, and that will probably last until Friday. I don't know. How do you feel about that, Matt?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. I am with you. I am with you there. It starts to feel very long after a while, you know, and I think that kind of is the whole point of it. And I remember last year thinking like I almost started to get into the habit of like that's how I live now, if that makes sense. You know, you almost start to get accustomed to your penances, you get accustomed to the things that you gave up, accustomed to the fast, to the all the other penances bestowed upon us by the church. And I remember thinking like life has changed, like this is what we are now. And then almost when Easter came around and all of those penances were lifted and we were in a season of celebration, for a little bit I almost felt like I was doing something wrong, like I am indulging in all the things that am I not supposed to be, like
meat twice.
Yes. Right. And what was interesting too, I remember especially about last year's Lent, was how much, and I said this to you before we started today, how much I look forward to the Sunday, because on the Sunday those penances were lifted and you could enjoy those things. But as Lent continued to progress, I found myself indulging in those things less and less, even on the Sundays, which I guess is good, which I guess is the whole disciplinary aspect of Lent, and really to deny ourselves and to deny our flesh. But man, I agree with you. It's an exciting time now, and people look forward to it, as do I. But then when it hits and you start to get in the routine of it, it's like one of those, like, okay, I got to do it again tomorrow. Like you feel accomplished when you do a day, and then it's like you got to do it again right tomorrow. And especially for somebody like me who really enjoys cooking and food and all kinds of meat. People who I remember, I forget who might have said something like it, but non-Italians have an easier time during Lent because of our natural ethnic love of food. So I know people, Kev, who don't like food. Like they're just not into eating. They'll eat to maintain but it just doesn't do anything for it. It's not pleasurable. They don't enjoy it. They don't like a cup of coffee. They don't drink coffee. They drink just water and seltzer water throughout the day. Like they live such a boring life that Lent is on. They're in a constant Lent. They're in a perpetual Lent. It's nothing to them. And to people like us, especially me with meat, it's like, wow, like I don't realize how much I consume until I can't do it. Exactly. I found that I remember, I feel like I'm going on about this a little too long, but I really enjoy like Italian sandwiches, like salami, gabagool, prosciutto, all those kinds of sandwiches. And then I found myself saying last year, like, what am I going to eat for lunch? Like, what am I going to eat for a snack? I didn't realize how much I was consuming it until I couldn't. And that really kind of put things in perspective for me.
It's hit well. For me when I've traveled. It's like I travel during Lent. It's like, oh, what am I? Yeah, okay, now what?
The world does not conform. It would be much easier.
I know, right? We always end up traveling during Lent, and it just is what it is, I suppose. But no, but today, I mean, aside from talking about Lent, we also want to talk about. We're going to start the show talking about Our Lady of Lourdes. We're recording this on Sunday, which is her feast day. We'll talk a bit about that. We're going to talk about Biden and Putin a bit, and we're going to talk also about maybe a bit about Benedict XVI, who resigned. I think you said what 11 years
It was
ago
11, yeah. So
this
it was
week.
11 years ago.
Crazy.
Yeah, to the day or two, depending on what. But yeah, Saint Bernadette. What I think about one thing about her is it struck me when I was pondering her the other day, because a lot of these really great saints, Kev, tended to be quite young who passed, right? Saint Bernadette was quite young. And then I was thinking, well, who else? And I thought of Saint Therese, who was maybe 26. And then I thought of like, Saint Gemma was another one. And then I started thinking of a lot of apparitions, right? Like Fatima and La Salette, and these were all really to children. And I think it's kind of it makes me think that our Lord and the powers of heaven really have this inclination to youth and to maybe even children, probably because of an innocence towards them, and just your youth is like your prime. Those are your golden years. But a lot of these saints had these glorious apparitions quite young. I'm not sure how young Saint Bernadette was when she passed. Maybe I could pull it up real quick.
I think I want to say 14 or 15. I'm not positive, but she was in her mid-teens because she was supposed to be graduating school, but that wasn't as it is now. That wasn't 18 or 19. I think she was maybe 15, 16 years old. And I really appreciate her. She's one that I like, especially because you can see pictures of her. And to me, when you see pictures of her, you can see the twinkle in her eye.
Real.
Oh, yes. I love it. She looked like she was a bit of a stubborn girl, and I think that's kind of how she was. And I was fortunate enough to visit her tomb and her body, her incorrupt body in Nevers, France. Incredible.
I remember.
Really incredible. I mean, that's one of the greatest experiences I've had in my life, just to be able to witness that and just see that really, above maybe anything else, showed me that the power of God, and it's just like, there's no denying it. That's Saint Bernadette, and she died in what, 1880?
Yeah, you were. Yeah, I pulled it up. You were a little off. She 35 years old. Was
when she died? No, but
yes,
no, apparition was the question.
Oh.
I'm sorry. I thought you meant when she appeared. No, I gotcha. No, dead.
No, but still okay. So even 35 is still young. But you're right. I pulled up her name, and there are pictures here. And right, you could see that twinkle. You can see the twinkle in her eye. I'm with you though. I love those. You can actually see the photographs of saints. She was canonized, Pope Pius the 11th in 1933, December 8th, is her day. But excuse me. It brings them to life a bit more, because you read all the writings of the saints. I remember, I forget, it might have been, somebody, my memory, I'm not quite at Biden's level, but I'm slipping a bit. Somebody said, I wish whoever wrote the lives of the saints 1,000 years in purgatory, because we read these books about the lives of the saints, and we read the glorious sanctified life that they live, which is true, but we sometimes lose that human aspect of it, that they had a 24-hour day like us. They woke up like us. They didn't feel well at times like us. They were hungry like us. They cried like us. They laughed like us. They went about their day like we did. And sometimes that is lost when you're reading quotes and their writings, where they're actually in a period of study and reflection to put out their intellects and their thoughts on things that are of God. But we lose that aspect of it a little bit. Of they were very human, and
she didn't want. Yeah, she didn't want to become a nun. She wanted to have a family. I mean, she was someone who wanted a normal life, but due to the direction of her priest, and pretty much the necessity of her life, that she had to go into a convent. She because otherwise she would become like this pop star, and of course that's you couldn't have that. You couldn't have a pop star who was the seer of Our Lady, because of course in that case Our Lady is the heroine, not Saint Bernadette. And so she was almost forced into a convent, and of course she accepted that humbly, and that's a big reason, I'm sure, why she is a saint, because she did accept that, but she didn't want it. She did. That was not a willful thing. She that was against what she wanted. It was against her will. And a lot of what happened, and this is basing on the book that I've read about it, and I don't know if that's it. I read the Song of Bernadette. I've read a couple of stories. And Song of Bernadette, take it with a bit of a grain of salt. It was written by a Jew, I think, actually. But the point is that I think she was someone who, yeah, she just wanted a normal life. She saw Our Lady and didn't ask for that. She didn't ask for anything that happened, but then accepted
So
it.
how about
Accepted
this?
hardship.
This was just coincidence. I did not even know this one was here, but a quote from Saint Bernadette. She must have heard me. Um, she said, I would like to know the defects of the saints, and I would like to know what they did to correct these defects. That would be far more beneficial to me than hearing about their miracles and their ecstasies. See, she's got it. She was thinking what I was thinking in the 18th. We're like, maybe I'm on my way. Who knows what I will see, what visions I might. But no, her writings here, just these brief little words of inspiration that I have related to, because as you said, kind of when we started, Kev, I have been sick. I had the flu. I thought I had pneumonia. There was a poor kid. This is totally off topic, but so I was in the waiting room for my second visit to the doctor when I thought I had pneumonia, and this young kid came in with his mother, and they walked up to the desk and they were checking in, and she said, yeah, my son's been going through a lot lately. And I kind of rolled my eyes. I'm like, this kid probably feels 1/10 of as bad as what I feel. Like, I thought, like, there's no way this kid feels as sick as I feel. So the nurse goes, what's been wrong with him? And she goes, he developed the flu, which turned into pneumonia, which hospitalized him. And while he was in the hospital, he caught an ear infection, which developed into pink eye. And I was like, all right, never mind. Maybe I'm all right. Maybe I'm all right. Poor kid. Yeah. So just a few things that I thought were really powerful of her, because she speaks of suffering, and it's in those moments. It's easy to talk about suffering when you're healthy, right? But it's when you're really feeling like death. And I pondered that while I was laying there with 102 fever and thinking about my rosary, how you really don't feel like it. A lot of the saints were really strong in prayer, very ill. Like Saint Therese would be coughing up blood, and she was extremely devoted to prayer. And it really made me think, like, how much love, really, more than anything, the saints had to live these lives. But one of the things
they were fighters. Sorry, I mean, I think that's the amazing thing. That's exactly it. They were always fighting. And I think, again, as you say, it's like we get this picture of they're just these perfect people, and that's not it at all. They were fighting their demons from the same age as we were, and okay, I'm sure you had some that were kind of these very innocent spirits. I think that did exist, of course.
Yes, I agree.
But I think they're rare. I think they were much more the rare case. It was much more these saints who truly were the ones who truly struggled through their imperfections and overcame them. And that's, I think I was talking to someone recently about St. Francis de Sales. I think it was St. Francis de Sales. And I don't know if this is true. I don't want to disparage him at all. But anyway, the story is that he was someone, if you read his writings, they're very calm. They're very gentle.
Yes.
The ones I've read at least. And apparently he was a very high choleric. He had a very bad temper, as he, in his nature. And they say, I guess, apparently under his desk, you could see like the scratch marks from his fingernails from just holding in his temper from, when he was, he was having a hard time, not giving in to the emotions. And that's incredible to me. I hope that's not bad for anyone to hear anything, but to me, that's amazing, because exactly this whole point, that is showing him having a struggle, having an incredible struggle to hold in his weaknesses, but doing it. Which is that's sanctity, right? And that's that's a lesson for us all. Whew.
You're right. There are some saints I think of for maybe the children of Fatima, who did seem to almost have this pure innocentness about them. I know Jacinta suffered a lot, but were saints who went to great extremes to avoid sin, and throw themselves into thorn bushes, and go outside. And I think a lot of that, even maybe King Louis of France, would have himself get whipped whenever he felt temptations. Like, these were saintly men, and I think it might have been Mario, maybe, from Novus Ordo Watch, who said, and I haven't forgotten this, that the saints are not declared saints for their writings or for whatever else they may have done. They're saints because they lived holy lives. And I think that gets lost a lot. And a few of the things that Saint Bernadette said, why must we suffer? She asked. Well, because here below, pure love cannot exist without suffering. Oh, Jesus, I no longer feel my cross when I think of yours. That's a very powerful quote. I no longer feel my cross when I think of yours. Oh, my mother, she said, speaking of the Blessed Virgin, to you I sacrifice all other attachments so that my heart may belong entirely to you. What will the crown of those who humble within humiliated? I'm sorry. What will the crown be of those who humble within and humiliated without have imitated the humility of our Savior in all its fullness? They think that I'm a saint. When I'm dead, they'll come and they'll touch holy pictures and rosaries of mine, and I'll get buried and broiled on a grill in purgatory. Promise me that you'll pray for my soul instead. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for me, a poor sinner.
I'm sorry to take this in a negative direction, but does that sound like Sister Faustina to you? Have you heard of what she wrote about herself?
She is God's delight.
Yeah, not exactly the same
favorite one
as Saint Bernadette. Yeah, wow. Slightly different, of course. Yeah. Anyway, sorry to turn that negatively.
No.
It's beautiful, and I highly recommend again everyone to go out and just Google images of Saint Bernadette, because I just think when you turn them into people, you can see. I mean, Saint John Bosco, Saint Teresa the Little Flower, Saint Pius X. I mean, there are saints that we can see, and to me, it's like that helps you remember they're people. They're flesh and bone.
And I think I was thinking about this point the other day as well, when usually on Twitter at night I post "Sweetheart of Mary, be my salvation," that little ejaculation prayer, and there's always Protestants who flood the whole comment section, and they always say that's not biblical, that's not in Scripture, and I had the thought when I was reading some of their comments that it almost seems to me that they confine themselves to the Word of God, sacred Scripture, so much that if I were to say something like our Lord ate breakfast, that they would say that's unbiblical. It's almost like they lose the sense that these were even people. Like, if it's to them, if it's not recorded, it didn't happen and it is unbiblical. These were people who lived among us, and as I just said a few minutes ago, had 24-hour days, went to bed, got up, did their chores, laughed, cried, joked, enjoyed themselves, cooked, ate food, played games. These are people who lived real lives, and we confine them to whatever is written in Scripture, and that is it. And it's almost like this I hate to say this mental defect, but like you're confining real people, real moments, real events in time to just what is written, recorded of them. It's like, I hate to say use your imagination, because these are real things, but they fail to use their imagination to see that these were people who lived. I don't know. It's just a strange gap to me, and it's becoming stranger and stranger the more I see some of these people argue their points.
And on the flip side, and I think I totally agree with you. On the flip side, it's interesting to see, and I've never seen this show, but I'm sure you see it posted all the time, that the Chosen, which is a supposed story about Christ and the apostles, and I think that their point is kind of, they take what you're saying, which I think is very true, but then they apply their own twist. Like they put words in Christ's mouth, pretty much. They turn him into, he has an everyday life, and he's funny, and he has as far as I understand, right. Again, I haven't seen the show, but that's the impression I get. And I think obviously that's taking that too far. So I mean, you can remember that Christ, as you say, was also a man, but then you can't use your own imagination just to make Christ into something that we don't know who he was. So I think it is somewhere in the middle. But I'm totally with you that it is something that they dogmatize the letter rather than the spirit too, and I think we do that too sometimes, right? I mean, that we forget that, look at the epistle of today, about charity. It's about, what is the point of why we are here? What's the most important of all the virtues, and it's being charitable. And I think, again, especially like on Twitter or something, people often forget that you get so dogmatized in what we've learned, what we've seen, what we've heard on YouTube videos, that you forget the most important thing is charity.
Yes. Yeah.
Anyway,
that's very true. And I think people really should make a little bit more of an examination between Saint Bernadette and Sister Faustina. I like that comparison, and it's a point to make too, because people tend to think that 1958 is the cutoff date. Saint Faustina was, Sister Faustina was Sister Faustina was pre-Vatican. A lot
Yeah.
of these issues are pre-Vatican. You know, it's just because we have a cutoff date of 1958 of the death of Pope Pius XII doesn't mean that there weren't, you know, things going on that weren't of God back then. Of course there were.
But her writings were
really,
even not
they were
condemned, I
condemned.
think. But were they condemned by
But
John
I think it
23rd?
was the Ottaviani who condemned them. I don't know if the Holy Office did it
during the time of John the 23rd. Yeah,
right. You're right.
It was 59 or 60, 59 or 60 when it was.
Right. There was
was it condemned or was it just kind of?
I'm pretty sure that. Oh
was
man,
it condemned?
I'm pretty sure.
I know for sure it was like censured. It was kind of like, hey, you know, this is not approved. But I don't know. Maybe condemned. I'm not sure. That's actually a good question.
We could look it up. People will find it. People will find it.
Someone comment.
Someone look that up and tell us.
Do our work for us. Come on. See, this is what happens when we don't stick to a show. You know, it's like Matt doesn't. He's not able to do the work. You know.
That's right. That's right.
You know?
We ramble and ramble and ramble and ramble and ramble.
Well, speaking of
rambling,
that's a great segue, Matt. Hey, well done. No, but I mean, and so it took us 20 minutes to get to the politics, which I think is a good thing. It's that's fine. One of the weirdest things I've ever seen was it last week? Was it Monday? I don't know. Remember when Sunday? Whenever it was, Putin was interviewed by Tucker Carlson. We already did a show about that, about mine and my dad's opinions on that. You can go check that out if you want. I mean, to wrap it in a nutshell, I think it's a great thing what happened because Tucker Carlson showed the legacy media that they're done. They're over. You can now have independent media go and do the biggest interviews in the world, and no one's going to stop them. To me, that's the biggest point. Now, that's just purely my opinion. And I think with Putin, I don't think, to me, nothing changed. To me, I don't think he's a good guy. I don't think he's a hero. He's the leader of a country who's maybe evil. He's certainly not good. Anyway, the point being, on that same day, when you see Putin talk for 2 hours at a very highly intellectual level, I don't know if you've seen the interview, Matt, but
yes,
very high. 30 minutes, he gave a detailed description of the history of Russia. And then on the same day, Biden comes up and can barely speak. And it's like, we are so in trouble as an American country. Wow.
Well, I think, the first thought I had on this is, first, the point you made is true. From last I looked, it had, I believe it was almost 200 million views.
Crazy.
Of CNN or MSNBC or Fox News. They're not even close to those numbers. No. I mean, we're talking about an audience that is, and I think this interview was only published on Twitter. I don't think it was even aired anywhere else. I think it was it was?
It was on YouTube. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Okay. But still, you're right. I mean, and you and I mentioned this a few shows ago. We have, because I brought up EWTN, the medium of reaching people has changed from being in the television in the big box television in the corner of your living room that had flowers and plants on it to on your phone or in your hand, or even, I guess, with Apple's technology now, wearing glasses like it. One of the thoughts that I had, though, as I kind of watched this, is people seem to take whatever Putin said as almost he was giving the authentic answer. But I think, like, who's to say he's telling the truth with everything as well? He's had a very bad history and all of that. A point that he made that I think was intriguing, and I wish Tucker pushed him a little bit more, was Tucker asked him who is running the United States. Mm-hmm. Is Joe Biden running the United States? And Putin said that I've seen a lot of presidents, and I've reigned, and they're not. They're almost. What did he said? Something like, it doesn't matter who the U.S. president is. There are bigger powers that run things, and I think that is. I wish Tucker pushed a little bit more. I don't think he. Maybe because Tucker's in it too. I don't know. I don't want to say, but I feel like that I wish he gave a little bit more as to, well, who are these people and where are they? We all know that Joe Biden cannot be running the country. I mean, this report said that he has done criminal things that are worthy of him losing his presidential office and facing federal charges, but they can't do that to him because he's an old, feeble, elderly man who doesn't know what's going on. That's literally the report. And while he was making his press conference that night to try to clarify and rectify the situation, he said that Mexico was bordering Israel. Right. So he's just real. And we knew this. We knew that this was the case with him when he was running in 2020. You go back, pull it up on YouTube, the debate with Sarah Palin in 2008. That is a different man. he might have had a stuttering issue here and there, but he was sharp and he was quick and he was able to make coherent arguments. This guy is literally mumbling, and people, they bring it up and they go blah, 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 almost. It's not even a joke. That is how he speaks. He talked about he thanks the Great Lakes for their oil. Like he's going on tangents that are absolutely out there and really just bad. And it comes to the question of what's going to happen. There are those rumors of Michelle Obama replacing him on the ticket. I think we really have to consider these sort of things. But why is it that they, when Trump was in office, they mentioned we have to invoke the 25th Amendment to remove Trump from power because he is a threat to our national security? Where's the talk with that with Biden? Why aren't the Democrats or even the Republicans, for that matter, and the new speaker, Mike Johnson, why aren't they saying we need to remove him from office? Nobody seems to be saying a word. And I think that's kind of concerning too. Is there any urgency here to address this issue? Or I don't know. Something is very fishy.
But I think that's what we need. We need more, I don't know if it's Tucker Carlson or what, but people asking these questions. And that's part of what I liked about Putin. I mean, again, I'm not saying he's a good guy at all, but the questions he raised about the economy and why, the U.S. is raising sanctions or keeping sanctions on Russia and China when it actually ends up hurting the U.S. probably more than anybody else. And Putin's like, hey, I don't even know why they're doing this. This is pretty dumb. And it's like, I don't think most Americans or people in the world even consider that. That doesn't even cross their mind that you're losing all of this, in importing, exporting, because you're putting sanctions on this country. And like Putin's like, I think he said, I think that the U.S. thought that they could really make us collapse. I think it was a game of poker, and I think that Russia called their bluff, and now the U.S. is the one suffering, and I don't think anybody knows this type of stuff. So I mean, you see all these different. There's so many different issues, and Putin talked about the dollar and how it, how it's connected with oil, and if that gets crushed, which it's going to. All the inflated dollars, all the printed dollars that have gone over to Europe and China, et cetera, for the oil is all going to flood back into the U.S. and inflation is going to go hyper. It's going to go kaboom, and it's going to be dumped on Trump. That's kind of what my thought is. I mean,
right.
Whatever people want to believe about it, maybe it's dumped on Biden. I don't know, but it's going to be dumped on somebody, and it's going to be a tough question. I think the U.S. is going to have a couple rough years coming up.
And one of the things you said, I think is right, that I agree with, is when you watch that interview, you can see that that Putin is operating at an intellectual level higher than anything that we have going on with either party.
Totally.
They're and he even made the point. He said the U.S. is behind in a lot of ways. The U.S. doesn't understand the current state of global affairs, and he said something along the lines of, as well, the United States is the biggest proponent of propaganda in the world.
Yeah.
So it makes me wonder, like, what do we not know, or what do we not get? It can be very consuming, which is one of the reasons why I think, and you left Twitter for a lot of reasons before, but sometimes you get wrapped up in this stuff and you get so consumed in it, and you start to go, I don't want to say you go crazy, but you start to wonder, what are we being fed? What are we being told? What percentage of it is false or just straight up propaganda that is not reality at all? It can be very overwhelming. And I think just to take a step back, especially this Lent, to take a step back and kind of just be like, all right, I just want to focus on my catechism and my prayer life, my rosary, my fasting, my focus on those things and sanctifying your soul. That's the one negative I think about social media, is it puts everything at our fingertips, but it allows us to be a part of it, which can sometimes, for one person, is extremely overwhelming. But yeah, Putin is operating at an entirely different intellectual level than either party here. And Trump brought that up too. I remember Trump was in an interview with Bill O'Reilly, and he said Putin's been a leader. This was 10 years ago now, almost at this point. He's been a leader for his country. And the thing is that, and somebody posted this on Twitter, and it kind of made me raise an eyebrow. Putin is in war because he loves his country. The United States is in wars because they have other countries' interests in mind. And if you think about it, when was the last time? Right.
That's you're being nice, but yeah.
True. But we launch these airstrikes and we call these wars and all that for what? Because we have to side with Israel. Because we have to side with. I mean, you name the list here. We jump to the defense of other countries. Russia doesn't really do that. And they haven't been. You think of this so-called Bush's declared war on terror. I don't think that Russia had much involvement. I know that Putin pounded ISIS targets, I think a bit, but they don't fight those wars like we do, and we do it for all the wrong reasons. And I think and Nikki Haley, she's another one who's trailing by 50 to 80 points, and so she trails Trump by 77 points in Oklahoma. She's not dropping out, and I'm not sure why. Well, maybe because she thinks that he's going to get trouble and removed from the ballot, and she's going to glide right in there. But these people are such war hawks for other countries. Iran, Lindsey Graham. Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, you really went down a rabbit hole and then jumped right back out. But I had to say, I think you're totally right. I think Nikki Haley is their plan, because I mean, right now they're running with Biden, who has just declared, like officially declared, unable to have office. So he can't be reelected. He can't. I mean, that actually can't. I even take out corruption, all that, he can't. So it has to be someone else. And I think you're totally on it with Nikki Haley, because she is exactly what they want. She's in the big uniparty. She's a warmonger,
a war hawk, yes.
And she is a woman. She'll be the first female president. She's quote unquote Republican, even though she's not. I think you're exactly right. Their plan right now is we'll run Biden or Gavin Newsom, who nobody cares, and it's going to be Nikki Haley because Trump's going to be in prison. I think that's what they actually want. Totally my opinion, but that's the Democrat plan, or the Uniparty's plan A, I think. And I'm curious to see with Robert Kennedy Jr. I think he's being really kind of bullied around, like you saw with Bernie Sanders. A lot of similar stuff, that he's just being pushed off the ticket pretty much. He's going to make some noise. I'm still interested to see what he does. I don't think he's going to be elected, but he's going to make things interesting somehow.
Well, they mentioned him as a possible vice president for Trump, which I thought that was kind of interesting.
I could see,
and I think the reason why Trump might do that is because I think that he would get a lot of votes if he runs independent or third party or whatever. He might get a lot of votes from both sides, and might spoil the election. He could be was it Ross Perot maybe, who Bush would have been re-elected, but he lost to Clinton, but Ross Perot kind of threw a wrench in it. I feel like Kennedy could kind of do that spoiler thing where he affects the outcome. So I could see why Trump might say, come on my ticket so we don't have a problem.
I think the only issue being is that he is so anti-vaccine, and Trump obviously is pro.
Which is an interesting dynamic considering parties. The base of Trump is very anti-vaccine, and Trump was the author of the vaccine.
Strange.
And the Democrats are all get vaccinated, and Bobby Kennedy Jr. is very anti-vaccine. But I think I'm very interested to see how this is going to play out. It might not be Biden Trump as the two nominees in November.
Haley and Kennedy. Boy, there's a question. Do you vote? We've talked.
You got to do another show.
I know we're going to have to do another show with Louis and Father.
The edited version, yes.
Woo! Boy, I don't know. In that case, I don't know. Because I mean, Kennedy Jr. I mean, he is a public pro-abortionist. So
yes,
I don't think I could vote for him. And Nikki Haley is a warmonger who I think she's pro-life. Actually, don't even know. I don't know. I mean, either way, I mean that would be a lot tougher choice for me than Trump Biden.
Well, the thing that's the thing that I think is strange to with this whole thing is Nikki Haley governed very conservatively, and a lot of her policies, apparently, when she was governor of South Carolina in 2010, I think she got elected, were considered far right, and she governed far right, and her views have morphed and changed and moderated. I don't know if she's doing that to appeal to maybe a more moderate independent base from Trump, but there have been people, and I don't know if I agree with it, but there have been people who have said, watch out for her because she's playing a fake card right now. She's actually extremely conservative in her governance. I don't know. We'll see. But apparently she's been pretty tough on a lot of social conservative issues.
You know who else? Do you know who else has been very tough on social conservative issues? That is Pope Francis. He is known to be very tough on social conservative issues.
God is dreaming.
Yeah,
the spirit is blowing.
Bergoglio. Yeah, interesting. Well, we probably just comment on this for a few minutes. I mean, because it was, I think you're saying 11 years now since Benedict resigned. I think I'll just ask you, because I mean, I think you're a good one to ask about this and talk about this for a few minutes. I mean, what was your feelings? And where were
I
actually real
remember
quick,
this day.
where were you? So you were still in the Nova Sordo at that time?
Oh yes.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. So this was what, 2013, right? Now remember, I thought at the time that Benedict the 16th was like all that we could have possibly have needed and wanted, because my experience with John Paul II was he was old and crippled and could barely speak and was confined to a wheelchair, and he didn't get around much. And then so that was my really my view of him. And so when Ratzinger came in, and he was mobile and pretty charismatic, differently than John Paul II, but I still think that he had a sort of charisma about him. And he dressed well and he vested well. He was exactly what I wanted, and I fell in immediate love with him. And so when he resigned, I remember being extremely upset about it. And actually, I remember looking. This was the first time that I really focused in on a papal election of white smoke, and all the cameras are focusing in, because I remember when John Paul II died and Benedict got elected, but I kind of just had it on the news to watch. I wasn't really invested in it as I was then. And I remember there were some names of men that I wanted to succeed him. And they were, again, as you would probably have guessed, more so conservative names. Ranjith was one of them. Burke was another. Ranjith of Sri Lanka, he was from. But Burke and that kind of mold, And so I remember when he actually got in the helicopter and departed Rome, and the bells were ringing off, I thought that this was an awful moment. And I actually remember at the time, I didn't know what the word meant at the time, but he was leaving the Vatican, and the gates, I guess there's this, it must be the door of St. John Lateran. The guards closed the door, and they announced that as soon as those doors shut, we are in a state of sede vacante. And I feel like that might have been the first time I've ever heard that word ever. And the door slammed, and you could hear it go boom, whatever. And they said that was it. The Holy Catholic Church is now in a state of sede vacante. And I remember Googling that word. What does that even mean? So who would have thought? But that was to me, and I pointed this out on Twitter, because there are a lot of people who take issue with Bergoglio. I don't know why I would take issue with Bergoglio, but a lot of people who take issue with Bergoglio, and they point fingers at Ratzinger, and they forget that Ratzinger is guilty of the same exact crime as Bergoglio, imposing Vatican II on the Universal Church, imposing a non-Catholic religion under the guise of Roman Catholicism on the Church. And he's more dangerous for that reason, because Bergoglio is obvious. Ratzinger fooled me. And that is the trap that we have going on here. Is he was conservative, and he quote unquote restored the Latin Mass, and that all the things that I thought mattered more than the faith was those externals of liturgy, and he played the part, and far more dangerous for it. But he's guilty of the same thing as Bergoglio.
Well, and there's pictures of him too, with witch doctors and with dung on his forehead. And so, I mean,
of course,
he's another one. It's like he did the same thing JP2 did, and the same thing Francis did. And it's just, as you say, he was more. It looked a little better, but it was the same. And I think that's what people have to realize, that this is not just a personality issue with Bergoglio. This is not just a infallibility issue, as as we know, our R&R friends would say, well, he's just a sinner. Well, I saw, sorry, right. Kind of same topic. I saw a meme or a picture of Bergoglio going to confession, and it just said something like, even the Pope has to confess his sins, and the comments underneath are, oh, I thought the Pope was infallible, and all these sarcastic, and it's just like, it was obviously these R&R commenters, and it's like, do you want me to explain this to you like you're 5 or like you're 10? That's like, I just like, come on. I don't want to go down this road for this show, but it's just like,
right, we're gonna go
come on.
I don't know how they don't get it. And I'll say his name, Jeff Kastman, is really missing the mark, and I don't know how you can't understand it. It's like the Protestants. Like, how do you not get what I'm talking about here?
The Pope cannot teach to the Universal Church error. That is impossible. It doesn't mean he is speaking ex cathedra. He can't preach to the Universal Church faith and morals error. That is defined as a dogma.
And the thing too is they argue personal heresy. As a private person, does he espouse, not teaching to the church? Does he espouse it personally, privately? There were many theologians, Bellarmine is one of them, who said even that can't happen. So
yeah, right.
It's not a dogma, but it
right.
is the common opinion that even that can't happen. Forget teaching it.
Someone like Cassman, I guarantee you, is complaining about Amoris Laetitia, probably saying it's heretical. I don't know. I'm putting that in his mouth, so I don't know that, but I'm sure that he at least like, oh yeah, pretty questionable. That is teaching to the universal church, and that's just one example. And I mean, in our days too, I mean, I think it's an interest. We don't have this defined, but if a pope is on television and says something publicly to everyone, is that teaching to the universal church? I'm not going to say it is or isn't. I don't know, but I think it's an interesting question. It's something that a true pope someday will define. I think that we just let it go. It's just like, oh yeah, he says all these things with his buddy interviewer, and he says these things on airplane interviews. It's like, well, it's still very public. It's still at least on the line of private and public.
But the thing is too, is even with an airplane interview, the reality is that Peter is speaking. And we should listen. I think that's really no. An airplane interview is not an infallible declaration of the universal church, but the vicar of Christ on earth is addressing people. He's speaking, and I bring this up all the time in the book of Acts when Peter speaks. It felt people listened. It felt everyone stopped talking. They fell silent. No one said, "Excuse me, is this ex cathedra? Are you speaking infallibly?" They didn't ask that. Peter was speaking, and they recognize that regardless of the level he is teaching at, whether it be ex cathedra or just uniformly to the universal church, still he is the supreme pastor. It would be if you're in a meeting, right? If you're in lunch after mass or whatever, and your priest speaks, the whole group stops talking and you listen to Father who's talking to everybody. There's just a sense of order here. If you were in a group and Bishop Pavrunas or whoever was with you, you stop speaking and you all quiet down. You tell everybody to shut up because he's talking. Because we recognize the role as teachers as their office. This is the vicar of Christ. He's speaking. Peter is addressing. Shut up. You listen. Doesn't mean you have to agree with absolutely everything. And what he says privately is subject to critique, of course. But still, that duty is owed of the supreme pastors.
So here's my question, because I am an ignoramus. Okay, in this. So I'm not speaking. This is purely as a guy. I don't have any training in this whatsoever. But my question again, so when you say private, I think back in the day before social media, television, etc., if you gave a sermon and you preached error, that's private heresy, because that is to a group of, let's say, 300 people, 3,000 people, but it's a private thing. It is only recorded in their minds by a few people, and it can be fairly easily fixed. Now, in this time, a private error, private heresy is spoken on an airplane to everyone, to the world. So that is actually being taught to the world, because we live in a different time than they lived 100 years ago. So is that still a private heresy, or is it public because it is being viewed by everyone from the Pope? And again, I don't know. I'm not even claiming this is the case, but I think it's an interesting thought, because of course, Jeff Cassman or someone would never even consider that. But isn't that at least worth a thought, since everyone can see it's online now? These errors are public to the whole church, and he's preaching it publicly without shame, without any retraction. I mean, is that just private heresy then? I don't know.
Think about it, in normal human conversation, you or I could misspeak, right? You could misspeak and say something that might be incorrect or an error or even heretical, but you don't intend it that way. And you can even tell by previous writings of the Holy Fathers, even that are not maybe even magisterial, but just their addresses or whatever, they're authentically and fully Catholic. So if they were to speak something that would be an error or even on the line of heresy, we can assume that it was accidental, and that if pointed out or corrected to, then they would just say, I need to clarify this. that is not the case with Bergoglio. He starts his sentences off by saying this is probably a heresy, but I'm going to say it anyway. So there is that human element. Of course, we don't believe the Pope to be impeccable, that he opens up his mouth and the word of God just falls out. That's not what infallibility is at all. But for a guy who got the floor mopped with him by Peter Diamond, who the whole network had to consider removing the debate because it was such a bad look for him. He's got a lot to run his mouth on. Like I'm not sure why. And
when I was still on Twitter, I coined the term Castman. I don't know if it's stuck around, but
I haven't even heard that.
No, it was at the time. I think everyone probably forgot about it, but it got a couple good laughs because it really was that bad. I am no Peter Diamond fan, but it was that bad. That was a mopping. Yeah, no, and I don't know. And anyway, I guess these are topics beyond us. I mean, it's an interesting topic, but there are some of these things that they just kind of approach being silly because it's like, okay, well, just understand infallibility and I don't know. Anyway,
well, he makes these arguments, and I saw the Page Catholic Family Podcast replying to him a little bit that he thinks all Sedes are Feniites, which is completely wrong. So if he doesn't want to debate Peter Diamond again, okay, but maybe he can somebody else.
Why?
Like there are
Why
many.
Not?
There are a lot out there who he can, if he really wants to.
I'm sure there are many. Go on with Bishop Sanborn. I would love to see that. I would pay good money. Father Desposito. I mean, there's so many of these clergymen. Father McKenna.
I tried.
Bishop Piperunas. Oh my goodness.
I actually wanted. I don't know if you know Father Dutiri, who's he's under Bishop Sanborn. He's in the RCI. He writes a lot of articles on the heretical Pope and all of these things. I wanted him to debate Castman so bad, but I think I even mentioned it to Father, and he was like, "I don't do that, whatever." Yeah. But
why step down? Yeah, no
I
offense.
I would love to see, like, say somebody different, Peter Diamond. But I think like you said, Bishop Sanborn. I think that would be great, and I wish even they would come together and do those things more often. Bishop Sanborn debated. Who was it? Flagelli, was it? In like 2004, forever ago. I think people should see more of that. I think it's a good thing to see, and I don't know why it doesn't happen more than that. Maybe you have some connections, Kev. Maybe you should ask.
Yeah, we should
put it out there. I think you would get a lot of, and I think you would take a lot of people who are on the fence and expose this recognize and resist thing. There's a lot of arguing back and forth, and I reply to you, you reply to me, but they should come together and have I was going to say a televised, like I'm in the 90s, have a YouTubed Twitter live debate with one another. I think it'd be very good.
Well, and it's nice because I think it is a controlled environment. I mean, Castman and Diamond was controlled, and it wasn't personal. Castman got a little heated at times, but Diamond
because he was getting beaten on top of the head.
Incredibly calm. I mean, total respect to him. I mean, again, I don't respect him, but he did a great job, and I mean,
he's known for his insults.
Yeah, he was just
he didn't do it. Yeah,
he was calm, he was cool, he was collected, and he just laid it out and just pounded the same facts over and over and over that Castman could not answer. Anyway, okay, so we're gonna wrap it up, Matt. I got one last question for you. We're this is like
another one
of these longest shows we've ever done. I gave you a little warning about this one, but a real quick question about Catholic movies, and you said to me that you have not seen the Song of Bernadette.
I have not seen it. I've heard of it.
I mean, today being the Feast of Our Lady of Lourdes, I don't know if you have time tonight, but it's a good one. And I've read the book. I didn't like the book, to be frank. I thought it was too crass. I mean, too kind of almost insulting of her family, especially, which maybe it's all true. I don't know, but I just didn't love it. But the movie is very nice. It's very sweet, it's one of my favorite Catholic movies, and I don't think there's much that you could not recommend. Very, very nice. I very highly recommend. I think it's one of the top 3 or 4 movies. And so that was the question. If you have a top 3, I guess The Passion, I'm sure, is up there. What other Catholic movies do you like? Any?
Obviously The Passion, but I didn't see the Padre Pio movie, which I heard bad things about afterwards.
Yeah.
There were a few about Fatima that I watched, but they weren't big movies like Song of Bernadette. So maybe I'll have to put that on this Lent.
Yeah, there's another. I'm trying to think of other ones. I really like The Reluctant Saint about Saint Joseph Cupertino. That's very nice.
Okay. Yeah.
What other ones? I like For Greater Glory about the Mexican Cristeros. That you better bring some Kleenex. That's a very good one.
Isn't Mel Gibson doing another movie?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
he is. Yeah, that's exciting. I mean, we were just talking about that last night with our men's group here. It's
It
a
was a
small group of our men.
masterpiece.
It's amazing. I mean, it's especially if you go in real. I know we're getting long here, but I mean, real quickly, I've seen on Twitter, non-Catholics commenting about The Passion. They're like, it's a torture film. It's it's the bloodiest film I've ever seen, and it's torture. And it's like, yeah, it is, and it's an incredible thing to think about. It's like it is a torture film, and when you go into that movie with the mindset of repentance, I suppose, or why this happened, and that it actually happened, and then actually view the movie as this is a torture film, and this man who was God was tortured because of my sins. Whoa,
right,
man, that is there's nothing more impactful that you could watch, I think, probably in your life. Just if you really go into it, especially with the right mindset. Whoa, my goodness, mind blowing, really changing. Yeah, no, but no, I'll have to think about it. Anyone else comment? Leave some comments. Tell us what other Catholic movies you like, because I've actually seen a lot of people on Facebook asking. Because a lot of people I love movies. I love watching movies. And it's hard to find good, wholesome movies because, well, they barely exist anymore. So if anyone has any recommendations, definitely let us know. And let us know, comment anything else you like. I mean, we just went 50 minutes. I mean, that's pretty good, Matt. Especially after being sick, man.
That is, yes. We had to make up for it. We had to make up for it. I've coughed. Yeah. I've muted my mic. I have a mute button here. I've coughed several times. You just haven't heard it. Technology. In the words of Joe Biden, I'm not going nuts. He said that. That's an exact quote. I am not going nuts. He said that. He's not.
It sounds like something that somebody.
Yeah. It sounds
and
like
if he's not, then he's going to prison. So win-win for the American people.
That never happens.
All right.
Trump said he was going to lock up Hillary. Where is she?
I know it. Yeah. Well, on that note, lock her up. All right. Well, Matt, it's been fun. Well, I know it. We'll talk to you again next week, and highly recommend everyone please stick around. For Lent, we're going to do Lent around the world. We're going to have people reading little bits of Lenten books, meditations, imitation of Christ, that type of thing. Really pretty short videos, maybe up to 10 minutes long. If you want to take part, please email me. We really, really need readers. Right now, I have like 2. We have a lot of days, guys. It's 40 days of Lent, so we need more than 2 readers. So please email me, kevin89davis@gmail.com. It's really easy. It's short, and you can really help. It's really beneficial. Matt and I are going to keep doing our show. We're going to have some regular shows. We'll have interviews as well, but we're mostly going to focus on Lent around the world because, as Matt said very, very well, that it is a time to kind of think differently during Lent. We need to kind of back up a bit from the political stuff, and we can still talk about it. Matt and I, I'm sure we'll chat about it in the coming weeks, but during Lent, I think we'll probably tone it down a bit and try to focus a little more on the spiritual side, as we will again on this channel. So stay tuned for that, and please, again, we do need help. Doesn't cost you anything but about 10 minutes and a good book. So kevin89davis@gmail.com. Hopefully Matt's going to do one as well. I'm sure I can talk him into it. So yeah, Matt, it's been fun. Until next Monday, God bless you.
Make the world Catholic again.